I've been building a house for 15 months.
Oh, I bet that's been fun.
Yeah, it's been a blast.
Construction sucks.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Well, they didn't prefab anything, so.
Oh, I mean, geez, that was a loss for them.
I don't know. I hear the quality's not as good.
Yeah, right.
We made it, episode 50, and there was much rejoicing. Yay! And to celebrate making it to 50 episodes, we brought in Sara Curry from JE Dunn to talk about one of our favorite topics, prefab. Sara has a brand new role that she's stepping into, not just brand new to her, but to her company and the industry. This is a fun conversation about how different GCs and CMs are thinking about taking on this push for prefab by building partnerships and this totally new concept of knowledge sharing. May have discovered a new CPC member in this one, Nathan. Enjoy!
And we're live. That's right. Big episode 50. Foresight leads to more sights with our guest, Sara Curry. But before we get to Sara, we're going to see if I can go ahead and share this. Yeah, here we go. I did share sound.
Beyond the forest, they met Lancelot and Galahad, and there was much rejoicing.
There was much rejoicing for episode 50.
There was much rejoicing.
The production value is so good.
If you're out there in listener land and you love our production status and quality, well, then send us some money. Maybe it'll help. We'll probably just spend it on whiskey anyway. Let's be
Don't
honest.
tell them that.
Why not? Then they'll be wondering where the quality went. It'll be in quantities, not
That's
quality. All right. Well, let's get this sucker started. Episode 50, guys. That's, in podcast land, if you take off once or twice a year, that's a year worth of shows.
Mm-hmm.
This is like 2 years worth of shows for us since we do it every 2 weeks about, right? So we got to be coming up on 2 years here somewhere.
Yeah, we should be.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's pretty
sure.
nuts, right?
I'm sure our producer could go look that up for you real quick.
Yeah, he's worth the salary we pay him. Well, I'm gonna kick off the drinks, and everybody knows that this happens to me at some point every year. Or, well, I kept saying I was gonna retire, but I haven't retired. So Iron Man is coming up, so we've crossed the moment where I no longer imbibe of the cocktail, and it's time to get ready. So today is brought to you by Polar, a 100% natural seltzer, calorie-free black cherry. And then we'll move to Zip Fizz, which maybe we get them to sponsor me. Zip Fizz.
I was gonna say you drink enough of it.
If you don't know Zip Fizz, that's these guys right here. You can get them at your local Costco. Sometimes they sell them across the counter at certain places, but Zip Fizz B12, it's good for you. It has a little caffeine, gets you juiced up. Get on the bike.
Nice.
All right. Well, that's what I got. Let's go. Travis Voss, what you got today?
Well, I was just gonna say, I as the unofficial producer, I have failed us because I looked it up, and our first Dorkcast was May 19th of 2020. So we've already eclipsed the 2-year mark.
Wow.
Whoops. But as far as my beverage goes, it's steamy here. I think it's steamy a lot of places. So I took some Noble whiskey, sherry cask whiskey, bourbon, I guess, and mixed it with some Goslings, and I got a little bit of I think they call it a Kentucky Mule.
Yep.
Nice.
A little bit of lime juice in there. What about you, Trent?
Boring as usual, guys. I'm just drinking a soda. So I was telling these guys before the show, I went to a little local brewery here near the house. And was going to get a growler of something for the show. And when I got home, what I thought was going to be a blood orange IPA ended up being what tasted a lot like carbonated water. So after dumping out the $18 growler of carbonated water, I'm
you
now
should take it back. back. Get your money back.
Well, we have to talk to you. Well, you know, we
Well, you should have poured it out. You could have gone later.
At least save it as a mixer. That's free carbonation.
Take them the carbonated water.
Yeah, say you gave me a box back.
This is supposed to taste like dirt.
Excuse me, sir. Do I look like an asshole to you? Would you drink this? You know?
Give me something I want to drink.
Right.
Then they look at you and like, sir, you ordered an IPA.
Yeah.
You have no real taste buds.
Right.
All right, that's fair.
Sorry. Now we lost all the IPA listeners.
Yep, there goes.
Don't worry, Trent's there for all of you. You can hate me, love him. You know, just pick your favorite. You pick your favorite host. Hey, a little toast to Jonathan Marsh. Jonathan had some things come up and couldn't be with us, so we're dorking out without him. But without that, now we have our guest, Sara Curry. Sara, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
We're glad to have you. Tell everybody a little bit about you and what if you brought a drink this evening.
I did. I have a glass of wine.
Nice.
Yep. Oh,
Classy.
don't mind the non-painted fingernails. I'm working on those. Should have done it with the other hand. No, the Trader Joe's guy in the wine department gave me a recommendation. By the way, if you ever go, ask them for their suggestions. They do not steer you in the wrong direction. So just a little thing I learned this week, all different types. So a little bit about me. What do you want to know?
Well, what would you say it is you do here?
Well, I do a lot of things. Most recently, so I took a new position this year. I've been VDC director for 9 years. Prior to that, I was on the dark side. I was a designer. I grew up in the architecture world. So fast forward to now, I saw an opportunity within the organization and jumped on the prefabrication bandwagon and decided to start specializing in that. So I worked for JE Dunn as our prefabrication integration director. And that does a lot of things.
Yeah,
I was going to say,
I really don't
ask
understand
that.
what you do.
That's the next question. It's got to be.
Okay. Let's just dive into that.
Yep. Following is explain that to everybody's listening, including us, because we don't know.
I had to figure it out, believe me. So first thing is that things like this is a part of my job, networking, understanding people's business models, getting to know people in the industry, talking to like-minded people, trying to find out what everybody's doing, looking for partnerships to work with on our projects. That's one facet. Staying out in front of the industry, just trying to keep up with the curve. Another thing is working directly with our project teams, helping them understand what do they need to be doing as far as execution. How do they work with their designers? How do they work with their trades? How do they work with their owners? I help with a lot of that upfront planning, and then help them get set up for success. I work a lot with the BDC department still. And then there's something else that I'm supposed to be doing. Just making sure that the company is evolving with training material, making sure that we've got the right tools and resources there to help guide our team. So in a nutshell, that's really about it. But it's a lot when you start looking at it.
I was gonna say, when you start to break that down, it doesn't really sound like the job of one. It sounds like this might be a beginning of a department.
It is. I did make my first hire this morning. I had a gentleman accept an offer, so I am slowly building a team.
Nice.
Awesome. It seems like with all of those different areas of focus, you're going to need some specialization, need some help as you get down the road.
Yeah. And I know that I don't have all of the experience. Like, I don't have the manufacturing background. My background's design and technology. Having somebody that comes in and has that manufacturing, like running a facility, like all of the putting the prefab components together, that actually is the gentleman that I just been bringing on board currently. So it's going to be interesting because we kind of get to figure out where we want to take this.
Yeah. So, I guess when you're talking about figuring out where you want to take it, does that include, I know some GCs have taken on trying to build out their own factory or, maybe not their own factory as much as a space where they could bring key trades and carpenters together. I mean, is that kind of some of the stuff that's been kicked around? I'm really trying to kind of, like you said, you're figuring out as you go. I'm trying to pick your brain a little bit on which directions you've looked at.
Yeah. So that's a question that constantly gets brought up with our employees. They're like, hey, are we going to do what DPR did and go buy like a bathroom pod manufacturer? And the answer is no. We're not looking to go and acquire any companies. We want to put the ownership and the ability into a lot of our trades that we work with. We like the idea of building them up as we build up, looking at, not to say we're not looking at self-perform opportunities, but we're trying to find what's the best fit for us and our business model. I had some folks ask, hey, are you guys going to go and get a warehouse and do multi-trade racks in house? And no, we're not going to, because that requires buying a labor force. You got to have all that specialization, licensures, all that stuff. We would much rather take and go and invest in a company and help them grow than to take that ownership on ourselves. So looking for those strategic business partners is a big thing that we're working on.
Yeah. So are you, so I know, Sarah, we've known each other for a little while. I know most of the interaction I've had with you was kind of in your previous role, in the VDC role. And I thought, the promotion, the new role, that whatever you want to call it, was interesting to me. And that's why I kind of wanted to have you on and talk to you more about it. Is this, I'm guessing what you're doing is a nationwide, kind of a nationwide job that you're doing for the company, right? I mean, this is something that you're looking out for JE Dunn, no matter where they are in the country, right?
Yeah. So it is, I was, Trent, when you and I first met, I was in our healthcare region and supporting them specifically on healthcare, but that was where a lot of our prefab was happening. And those vertical markets like healthcare, mission critical, advanced industries, our clients are really pushing the envelope with that, at least from our company's perspective. And so, yeah, moving into more of a national reach, helping out multiple different market sectors, helping people, basically a level setting exercise. So we got lots of really good pockets happening across the nation. And now it's really looking at, hey, how can we spread the wealth and help everybody else out? Because we are one company. And, what a healthcare client is really pushing the envelope and doing, can we take some of that knowledge and share it over mission critical and vice versa? And so, or do we have a multi-family housing unit that could benefit from some of the stuff the other market sectors are seeing? And so it's really just trying to get everybody to talk to each other. That's what I've really tried to work on the last couple of months, is how can we spread the wealth and everybody elevate their expertise.
That's got to be a real challenge. We talk all the time about, even from a project level, everything's its own small business. And now you're talking about going across multiple business units. And one of my jokes that I always make is
multiple regions.
And multiple regions. Yeah.
One
of the jokes I make a lot is, everybody wants to standardize as long as you pick them as the standard.
Right.
I mean, how have you addressed that? I mean, I know it's pretty early on, but I mean, what are your kind of early learnings there on how to try to establish that baseline and level set and get buy-in?
So I'm going to use an analogy that my boss did, or that he kind of put it in perspective for me when I moved over to his team, and it was the boat analogy. So we have our speed boats, we have our aircraft carriers, we have our cruise liners, we have some folks that, so go back to that pocket, like acceleration. We've got some folks that are off to the races and we don't need to do anything with them. Like, we just need to make sure that they're keeping up with the latest and greatest, but they're already doing great things. We've got some folks that are doing good, and they just need a little bit of extra push. And then we got probably, I'd say the majority in the aircraft carrier that's going to take a while to turn the boat.
Yeah.
So we're concentrating where it makes sense right now. But know that this is something that's coming from the top. Like, this is coming from our CEO. This is not an idea that somebody had, like, oh, hey, let's go do more prefab. It's like, no, this is what the C-suite folks are like, no, you must go do this. So, I experienced this when I was on the VDC side. I had when I started at Dunn, it was when VDC and BIM was just really getting adopted with our teams. And somebody gave me some advice. They said, hey, go concentrate on the folks who want to use you. And then when those people leave, they go to other teams. And then it's the adopter policy. And then it starts spreading like wildfire. And so it's the same concept here. We're going to concentrate on the folks who want to do it. And then when those people leave, they're going to influence others.
There's like a Nathan Wood quote right now that fits that, right?
Yeah. There's probably several.
Something about the rising tide.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give him the $1.
No soup for you.
No, I think it's really cool. I'm curious. So it seems like you're probably out there all over the country, different regions, different divisions, meeting with a lot of subcontract. I mean, would you say you're talking more with subcontractors? Or are you talking more with owners or other general contractors?
So what I'm doing is I'm talking a lot with the trades to understand capabilities, business models, what are their future plans. That's one piece of it. I'm also meeting with vendors, bathroom pod manufacturers, headwall distributors. I met with a company last Friday about modular CEPs and what they're doing. Just looking at, hey, what are the resources that we have available? Because like, here's an example. I got a hospital job coming up in Oklahoma and I need some coverage for headwalls. Well, I've already got it teed up perfectly to be able to connect those resources with that team to say, here you go, talk to each other. Let me know how it turns out and how I can support. I am having conversations with owners a little bit, not as much as the people who are actually putting the work in place. The next tackle I know that's on my plate is to start talking to more designers, because that's the feedback we're getting from. I did a lessons learned session yesterday with the team, and they're like, hey, if we use skin panels as an example. The designers had designed the skin in a traditional manner, meaning they had all the traditional conventionally built details in their set. Well, they ended up all getting trashed because they didn't apply, because it was a panelized system. Mm-hmm. So instead of them wasting their time and drawing all that stuff, why can't we just take the details that the skin manufacturer or trade is bringing to the table and just wipe out the generic details that the architect puts in their set? Great comment. Like, let's talk about it. So that's the kind of stuff that architects just aren't aware, because we're not designing for prefab.
Yeah, I think that's a big one. I'm out in that world quite a bit on the regular basis, and it's really about, I toured the SurePods when we were at Advancing Prefab, and it was like, hey, look, if we're not in 50% DDs, it doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm.
Right.
So how are you? And I've interviewed quite a few architects over time, and there's a little bit of this shift in their world thanks to what we're all up to. Especially given your background, how are you going about those conversations, and how are you organizing the team so that you can get that done earlier, or have you even gotten there yet?
No, we're there. We're talking through it. Like my big push. So my first IPD job was 11, 12 years ago. So, and that was when I was on the design side. So I've sat in their shoes in the prefab and early involvement realm. And I'll give you a little secret. The way you get into people's hearts and heads is you make it about them. You don't have a hidden agenda when you come in and you talk to them and say, we're going to do this, and we're going to do this, we're going to do this. It's like, no, we're a team. And what do you think about this? Everybody wants to have their opinion, and you get buy-in from people when you make it about them instead of about yourself. And so that's a little secret to my getting people to do things. And I may have given away too much, but I think it's important. I think that sometimes we drive our own agendas, and I think we got to look at the betterment of the team and what it is for the project and for the owner instead of ourselves.
Yeah.
So,
well, there's two Nathan Woods. We're something with ships and something
Something
it
with
for me.
Wiffies or something like that.
Whiffles. I'm
What's
trying not
in
to say it. I
for
don't want to pay that
me?
guy.
Yeah.
I don't want to keep paying him. We're going to have to get more sponsors.
Sounds like we're gonna have to get Sarah involved with the CPC.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's the next step. I think that we keep recruiting every time we talk to people.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Well, and so that was going to follow on that question with the VDC role. I mean, you are talking then because, you know, Trent and I live in this world where we love to do prefab, but design does not really allow for it. I mean, it sounds like you're starting to push that a little bit.
Yeah. Like I've had, I met with an MEP designer out of Kentucky. I met him at Advancing Prefab. We had a great conversation. I'm trying to get their MEP design business synced up with a really good trade because they could really do some great stuff together. And that would be awesome. I'd love to see that collaboration. I've seen it and I've seen it being successful, and I'd like to see people do more of it.
Well, I love to hear that too, because I think that as more and more GCs kind of gravitate to more of a CM role where they're not self-performing, I mean, that's your job then, right? Is to facilitate the job. So why don't you just, I mean, I've done the same thing as a technologist where I've walked into a trade show floor and I said, provider A, provider B, you guys need to talk to each other. Let's make this work together. I love to see that. That's beautiful.
Yeah, that's a lot. I enjoy it. I enjoy dot connecting. Like, and I do that in my personal life too. I'm like, hey, you do this and you do this, and y'all really need to talk and y'all need to hang out because y'all would be great as friends.
First round's on me.
Right.
Yeah, because in the real world, when we're trying to adopt all these things on a project, you know, Sarah, like trying to work back and forth in a conventional method between contractors and designers, I mean, there's no time for it. You can't, if you're not working together from day one and you're not like, if I don't have the ability as a contractor to pick up the phone and call my designer and solve a problem right there, I don't think you're ever going to achieve the type of project that you're speaking about and the stuff that you're looking into. There just isn't, I don't have 2 weeks to wait for some formal response.
Well, and not with the lead times and the escalation that we're seeing right now. Like we can't wait. Like we've got, I mean, shoot, doors are taking 14 months to come in. I mean, switchgear and all the air handlers, like those are insane. That every time I talk to somebody, the lead times are going up. It's like, we have to work together in the design phase. Otherwise the building's going to take like 10 years to build it at the rate we're going.
So it's very true.
I mean, if you're not in and maybe this isn't, I guess it would probably touch on your role then. If you're not in a like a type of contract that allows for a Trent to talk right to the designer, like how are you as a GC starting to manage that? Because we obviously have a lot of the technologies in place to streamline that communication back and forth, but it's still a process and a people thing usually. I mean, are you at JE Dunn, or are you seeing more GCs kind of being like, yeah, you guys just talk and just keep me informed?
I know that that's a lot of our team's approach. I very rarely have a team that's like, oh, it all has to funnel through me, and it doesn't work. That's a bottleneck and that's a problem.
Right.
And we're all adults and we can all talk to each other and we can all write an email.
I don't know.
The adult thing might be
okay, well maybe we're all teenagers. I don't know. Maybe we're not all adults. Maybe we're not there yet.
Right. Yeah, but you know, you hit on it earlier. It's a team. It's a partnership, right?
Right.
So
yeah,
if one member of the team doesn't trust me to talk to the other one, then I wouldn't say it's a very good team.
Exactly.
Well, and Trent, you sat in a project interview with us. You kind of heard the camaraderie with us. We want partners at the table. We're not looking for a dictatorship or a subordinate type mentality. It's all like, we're all even here. We're all shooting for the same success. If one person looks good, we all look good. Like, let's all work together because it's all for the betterment of everybody's, business practice, in my opinion. So,
agree.
Yeah, I think a lot of people agree with that mindset, but I think old means and methods get in the way of. I think the mentality of that is there in most people. I think people understand that that's the right direction and everybody wants it. but I think there's just a few small barriers remaining, and they're probably all contractual. They're probably all, there's just those little things that are getting in the way.
Well, on that point, those people ask me, what projects are not good setup for prefab? Design, bid, build, low bid, not happening. Like, you just throw it out the window. It's not even a possibility. They may do it as part of their business practice, but if you're trying to really push the envelope on that stuff, not gonna work. Because 9 times out of 10, you might be paying a premium for a component, but the savings in another bucket in your target value design may help you. But yeah, those low bid and design, bid, build, just I steer clear of those. Actually, I don't even get involved with jobs like that anymore.
I wish we didn't.
Yeah, it's like me too. But so that, I mean, it always brings up the question of competition, and I've seen a lot of GCs that we work with that are doing the same thing, especially when it comes to like different market verticals. Like we're a GC that does really well in data centers, and we're going to partner with the MEP trades that we know do really well in data centers in this region. But so how do you balance that out? It does benefit, I think, everybody to continue to work together. We've talked before that every project you're basically starting with a bunch of rookies, like you're restarting over with a brand new team. But so how do you balance that partnership with making sure that you're not just that the people are still being competitive and being pushed?
Well, so within our organization, it's really up to the office, the region business, or the vertical market business unit. So like healthcare, we're seeing a lot of those early involvement jobs. Not saying that design to build is not a part of that. There are some clients that we have that is all that they do, and we get repeat work from them, and that's fine. Totally, it's still there. It's just, it may not be one of our prefab jobs. And I think that applies, like I'm using the healthcare group as an example, but I know that applies in mission critical. I know that applies at the local office level, because before I was in the healthcare region, I supported our South Central region. So I worked on multiple market sectors, and that was Texas and Oklahoma. And yeah, they're going to have hard bids because that's the market sectors that they choose to go after. And that's okay. And that there's nothing wrong with that. It's just when people ask, what's the ideal project type to drive prefab, those types of deliveries may not be it. They may not be a good fit. And so when you're looking at prefab, try to focus on, more collaborative type deliveries. My recommendation.
Okay.
So.
No, like I said, that's just always been kind of interesting to me, that obviously is what I think is a strong trade partner. The partnerships always, or I feel, benefit us, but I always worry about from a strictly from a capitalistic standpoint that the competition does drive us. So if we're always in lockstep partnership, we may lose some of that competitive drive. But it sounds like you've got a good way to address that.
Yeah. And honestly, I've been very pleased to see, I've met with an electrical trade in the Dallas market about a month ago, and they're not doing, they're doing, kitting and small sub-assemblies and stuff in their business practice, but they want to go and do modular electrical rooms, and they needed to know how to do it. So we sat and we talked through it. We tried to mentor them and point them in the right direction. And, if they want to go do it, you have the world is your oyster, knock it out. Like, nobody's stopping you at this point.
Well, I think you're on to something there. I mean, I'm in that world, and that modern collaborative delivery is taking over the market. It's like FMI just did a study. It's now, if you add those all up, it's 80% of all jobs volume wise are now design build, IPD, some sort of CM at risk, CMGC, something like that. So they're lending themselves to it. So if you're a trade partner out there, you're starting to lose market if you don't go down that route, because that's what they're looking for. And it's funny too. There's this idea that, we've always talked that the sharing amongst the coopetition amongst our trade partners, that's actually helping I think, in the other markets where you're going, where it wasn't already there.
Mm-hmm.
You need it. You need everybody doing it. So you as a GC too, if that's what you're beginning to expect, and you go to a market where it doesn't exist, that's a difficult market for you to be in now.
Yep, sure is.
So, I mean, that mentoring of them is important to your business model.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's part of what we're doing. Like, I tell people, if you give us, like, we have naysayers on every job. We have people who are not bought in, the majority maybe, but we have like the one or two folks that are like, yeah, I don't believe in any of this. Like, give me one job, and I'll have you convinced. And at the end of the job, those folks are calling me being like, you're right. Should have done it. I should not have questioned you. I'm like, so you're saying I'm right?
You weren't wrong. How about that? I'm not going to give you
you weren't wrong.
I don't disagree.
I no longer don't disagree.
Well, so here's an example. I had an older gentleman that was the superintendent. He's been with us for a while, and we were doing the multi-trade racks with the drywall top out on them. And we were at the warehouse for the mock-up meeting, and he looked at me and he goes, I don't know about this. I don't know this is going to work. He goes, this doesn't make any sense. I don't get this. And I said, just wait. You just watch the process. Call me the day they install it. I got a call when the first rack went up. And he was like, holy cow, that's awesome. Let's do more. And
you can say holy shit. It's okay.
Didn't want to swear. Kind of like the mouth. Anyway, so but I look at that as the same thing for some of the trades that we work with. Like, if we've got, some that are experienced and we maybe have one or two that have not done it, just trust us. We're here to help guide through the process because we've been through it. And we want to help build everybody up to where I'll be honest, I don't like going to markets where I don't know that we have the learning curve, but we know we have to. And we know we got to teach folks. But that's the only way we're going to be able to all get better, is if we teach each other.
Well, and I can speak to a little bit more to Jeff's point then too. And I'm going to ask this of you is you're teaching not only your specialty trades, but your peers as well. Right. I mean, I think that one of the benefits that we get out of the MCA and the SMACNAs and the NICAs and everything that we are part of is, like, I always say that there is no way we could possibly perform all the work that we bid on. So why don't we try to help the people in our region raise the bar to start getting those owners to ask for the things that we do, so that everybody gets better, like you were saying?
Well, and we've got clients that are doing programs exactly like that. Like, I've got a client right now that we have program leads for every GC in their program. And we get on a prefab call every Wednesday. And right now we're talking about metrics and what metrics we're going to track and what makes sense for all their jobs, because they have a lot going on. But also they said, look, our program is going to double in size in the next 2 to 5 years. And oh, by the way, we're not bringing on any more GCs. Y'all are going to have to just do the work. And the only way you're going to be able to do it is if you do more offsite construction. So it's opening up that opportunity to
and then
it's
on you guys, because you're already kind of forced in this peer group, for lack of a better term, to work together to figure out how to do that, right?
Yeah, and the GCs are talking to each other. Like, hey, I went and met with one of my peers on Monday in Nashville. I flew to Nashville just to sit down and talk to them about what we're about to go through at one of our job sites. And the information sharing, it's like we're not competitors, we're peers at that point. And it's like, let's help each other out. We're not competing. We already have the work, so let's just work together at this point. And it's great. I love it.
I love that sentiment.
Yeah. I mean, the industry really, really needs that sentiment. It needs everybody pulling that rope in the same direction to keep going at it. There's an interesting question I have for you, especially given where you're at right now. And we've seen a couple of owners throw out that, X percentage of all of their projects must be prefabricated before, X time. That's cool. It's great because it's pushing, but who defines what I just had this discussion. Who defines what prefab is then? Because I can say, well, I kidded it. I did it. I did a few things. Is that prefabricated now? Like
I bought this piece of equipment that already has a flange on it.
Yeah, the flange is already attached. Sorry,
my pipe suppliers sent me nominal lengths of pipe.
That's a great point. And so I've got, let's see here, 4 jobs right now that have a prefab requirement on them. I have some that are hours. I have some that are dollars. I'm pushing for the hours, but to that point, we're not limiting it to certain things, but also like I've got one client, they're calling it prefab hours, not offsite hours. So prefab hours could mean it's built 5 feet from where it actually gets installed. It's built downstairs in another floor. It's built out in the parking lot in a tent, or it can be built in a warehouse. All valid, all count. So I think you have to look at the individual job and define it with that client. Or just like for an organization, this is something I'm working on is with our metric tracking is what does that mean to us? So for the general population and the 95% of the jobs that we do metric tracking on, if I have to go to a team, I need to say, okay, we're going to track these hours and this is what this means. And so therefore they can kind of define it within their project. And then the outliers, like the client specific things, we can adjust for those. So I think it can go, and this is a discussion I have with teams all the time, all the different levels of prefab, it all counts. Like the kitting, the smaller assemblies, the sub assemblies that are put in place, the multi-trade racks, the modular pieces. I mean, it all counts. It's just 4 different levels of it. So,
well, I think that I like that it all counts because I think that people, and again, Trent, in my position, like we think of the multi-trade rack, but it all counts. Like it's all a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
Do you think someday there'll be some sort of like grading system around it though? Like it's kind of like a force multiplier where it's like, if you're doing it 5 feet from here, you get 1x. If you're doing it all the way up to you're doing it multi-trade, you get like a 10x on it. I don't know. I just feel like that we've got to start grading this a little differently over time. Not to cause any problems in the group, but like to really quantify where the industry is headed and how far we can get. That's it. Well, I'm a data guy and
valid point. Totally valid.
I'm like, you got to give me a force multiplier here somehow.
I still to this day think the fact that it's not incorporated into our lead point system is crazy. I think that there's eliminating
a lot of trash.
Well, there's all kinds of stuff. Wasted, wasted byproduct, wasted product. I mean, there's a lot of advantages there. So I think that's one way you can incorporate it into some kind of, system, because owners care about lead points. So if there's a way to, if there was a way to incorporate that kind of method into that, if you can guarantee an owner a higher lead certification because enough of your subcontractors and enough of your work is being performed off site in a manufacturing manner.
Well, that's the kind of stuff we're looking at right now. It's like from an owner's eyes, okay, speed to market's always words you hear, quality, faster, but those words they're getting to the point where they're not differentiators anymore because everybody's doing it. So it's like, okay, well, how much trash do we move off your site? What has your delivery been on your fully functioning hospital? How have we eliminated that? Like, those are the types of things we now have to look at and say, okay, how are we approaching your project differently because we're utilizing prefab and not just because we think it's safe and it saves you time.
Right. Yeah. You're making it about them, right? It's just like you
said.
Exactly.
You
have to find it. Yeah. We don't need to tell them all the ways. Yeah. They don't want to hear all the ways it makes me more money. Right.
No.
Right.
100%. And that's what I was supposed to have a call with someone today. We were talking about the benefits of pods. I'm like, don't say that it's, better for the job. And it's like, no, tell the owner you got to spin it a different way.
Yep.
You know, the more we talk to you, the more it's like, Sarah, your job sucks, but your job is also awesome because you're teaching your.
I was
like,
wondering
if
where you
we're-
were going with this.
I was like,
No,
hey,
it's- if
thank you.
I'm sorry. Let me think it through as I'm talking. It'll make sense eventually. But if we think of the project hierarchy, like you have to teach your subs, you're teaching your peers, and then you also have to teach your owners. So you have to teach your customers, you have to teach your peers, and you have to teach the people you hire. It's a lot.
And
Yeah.
teach yourself.
And teach yourself.
You
Yeah.
have to learn.
Yeah.
It's a never ending learning cycle.
That's the awesome part. And
Yeah.
the
I
teaching
mean,
part's the not so fun part.
this is
But see, that's where, yeah. But that's where I also think JE Dunn's getting a strategic advantage in the industry, right? Like you can't, you're not bleeding, but you're definitely leading on that leading edge, which is actually, I think, positioning you guys for for more growth, for winning work, for standing out amongst, because you're already starting to qualify and quantify what it is that you're doing. That in and of itself, I know owners are like, oh, okay, that makes me feel, because I asked that question of you because I know owners who have said it and who are like, we got no way to we just want you to say, yes, you did.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, how do you measure that? And they're like, well, we don't know. And I'm like, well, you should ask that question. And so it's nice to see that. On that flip side though, too, you got a unique view in the middle that Travis hit on. I wanted to know, and do you think with the multi-trade and with the things that we're seeing, you think we're going to see more consolidation of trades into kind of multi-trade companies? I'm seeing a few of them along the way. I'm just wondering from your vantage point, what you think of.
It's already started. It's already started. Like I've got some folks that they do mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection now. I've got some electricians that are bringing framing and drywall in because they're maybe wanting to do more head walls. So I think that people are trying to find niches to where they can maybe invest in maybe a different trade and bring them into their business model and do all for one service rather than just have one trade. Now, and that's in certain parts of the country. That is not everywhere, because there are some places where everybody is still one scope, but they do want to work in a collaborative environment. They're like, hey, I got a warehouse, bring everybody over, let's have a party.
Yeah, I wondered how that would. You're right, it is happening. We've seen it already. I think they're the ones we're going to watch to see what their success rates are, what their win rates are. Especially given not every job you're going to do all three trades on.
Right.
And can you still do one trade and allow somebody else to do the other? Like there's a lot. It sounds like on the front, you're like, oh, cool. Mergers and acquisitions. Let's go buy a bunch of them, put them together and go. It's a lot more complicated in our world than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know I'm going to go back to the VDC world. I'll be honest, like I don't want one trade owning all of the systems from a coordination standpoint, because I have seen it where they've owned 95% of everything that's above the ceiling, and they drop the ball and they hold you up, and that holds up the whole darn job. And then you're like, well,
it's a lot of risk.
It's a lot of risk. And so it's like, sometimes you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. So it could benefit them, but it could also hurt them.
Yeah. It's like the diversification is the only free lunch in this world, right? I mean, sometimes that's the only way you can protect some of your jobs is by, like you said, if one guy has 90% of the work and that guy fails you, that's an ouch.
It hurts. Been there.
Well, let's get geeky.
Yeah, we haven't done that yet.
We
Yeah,
haven't.
What does getting geeky entail?
it entails like, all right,
You might need another glass of wine.
yeah.
Okay,
So pour
I'm
the
expecting
rest of
more
the
wine.
wine into the glass, and then we're gonna ask you really tough questions. No, what are some of the, we always say it, like I sit at a lot of tables and use the prefabricated head walls, or you use a bathroom pod, or what are some of the other kind of new cool things that you're seeing prefab? We hear multi-trade rack a lot, but
Mhm.
what are some of the geeky, crazy things? I thought that was cool right away that you said electricals brought in. I saw Travis shake his head. Electricals bringing in drywallers and framers to do head walls. I'm like, I never thought about that marriage. That is an odd marriage. And what other things were you surprised, or are you focused on coming out?
So let's see here. I'm trying to think which ones kind of threw me off. I love the underground racks, like the heavy electrical conduit racks that feed maybe a main piece of electrical switchgear or something in a cup. Those racks are awesome. If people are not doing them, they need to start, because the installation of those is just so fast. I saw one recently, one of our jobs in Texas, the undercarriage of underneath a bathroom pod, like all that cast iron waste pipe coming out underneath a pod, they racked that. So every rack, under every pod assembly, we had a rack of waste pipe. That was something that they thought of in the field.
Wow.
So that was, go
ahead. I was just going to say, let's continue on that, and let's take it to the technology side. So what emerging technologies or technologies are you guys kind of using from VDC, visualization, anything like that, to kind of help support these initiatives? What's the cool stuff that you're seeing or trying to use from that end?
So we're doing the typical like Navisworks coordination models. Revit's still heavily involved. The layout points are becoming more and more utilized. I feel like those have been around a while. Those aren't new, but because you have to build things standardized in a warehouse, you want it to work when you get out to the field. So the only way to control that is by controlling where you put things, and the total station, the data collectors, layout points, that's becoming ever so more important now. We've been looking at a lot of the VR and the AR and the MR. I would say less on the VR. Well, I take that back, because I had a client the other day tell me how I'll touch on that real quick. Client came, I had a meeting with one of our clients, and they said, hey, instead of having a meeting, what do you think if I just deploy all these Oculus headsets and we have a meeting in a VR world? And I said, do explain, because I get motion sickness when I put on those goggles. So I just kind of need to know what you want to do. Yep, exactly. There's another sponsor right there.
Right there.
So he goes, I don't want to bog down my people with another meeting, because we already have a lot. He said, get them in the Oculus, let them mark up what they need to mark up, like whether it's whatever we need to do, a virtual mock-up in that world, and let them use the Oculus to mark it up. It keeps all the comments. And he's like, I love this idea. And I'm like, I'm glad you do, because I can't use it. But okay, cool, we'll do it.
You get to tell somebody else to do it, right?
No, you have to try spatial. If you haven't done it,
spatial's pretty good.
See, I have to think
that may have been what he was telling me about. I don't know.
Because you can do it. You can attend it through a computer.
Yes.
So the beauty of that is you don't have to get motion sick.
Right. Everybody else can.
Everybody else can. You're good.
I have to think there's a lot of gains to be had from stuff like that. And I think the only reason you're not seeing it deployed more and more is because, it's like most things, it always gets worse before it gets better. So I think that like when you're always trying new things like that, it ends up taking longer and being a burden. So then people scrap it, immediately. It's like, well, that takes longer. That's not beneficial. So, but I really think that stuff like that will improve time spent in meetings and can make things a lot faster. It's
100%.
it's like the analogy of if I had to go out and dig a pool, it's like, would you want me to use a shovel or a backhoe? And, I could argue today I would dig the pool faster with a shovel because I don't know how to use the backhoe. But does that mean that I should dig every pool with a shovel? It's like, why wouldn't you just learn to use the backhoe and then you would dig them much faster? So
this reminds
analogy
me of when in the design world, when Revit was getting adopted by architecture firms, because that was when I was on the design side. And we had that exact comment. Like, it may take you a little longer in the beginning, but you will ultimately be faster in the end. So why not go ahead and just rip that Band-Aid off, flip that switch, get out of that 2D world, get into that 3D world, and let's move on with our lives. And eventually we had to have those frank conversations. Like, either you need to rip that Band-Aid off or you probably need to go find another job. So, unfortunately, that was where the firm stood, and that was a firm mandated thing. But I was part of the training committee to try to get everybody to convert, and that was not an easy thing. It's kind of like the adoption of prefab, though. I mean, it's what I said earlier. Let them get through one, and then there's no turning back after that. It's like, why not? Why don't we do more?
I think the world needs empirical evidence. And the only way you're going to get that is to do it. Experience. Right.
That's a hard hurdle, though. You talked about it, and Trent, you said it. You can teach yourself how to do the backhoe, but that's going to cost you some money the first time, and that first dig is going to be a lot more expensive than the second dig or the third dig. That's true when you're moving over to prefabrication. I mean, that was one of the things. That's that curve. It actually goes up. Right, because you got to buy the facilities, you've got to have the room, you got to redo the line.
It's a sharp curve. Yeah,
it's a sharp curve.
It's sharp.
But then it starts to drop quickly on the other side.
Yeah. And that was, sorry. Go ahead, Travis.
You're the guest. You finish your thought. I'll chime in later. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that's been a question that we've been talking about, is that some of these companies invested a while ago. So when their curve starts to drop, are we going to see their prices go down? Because some people are marking up and we're paying a premium. I agree with what you guys are saying. You're shaking of your head. I agree with that. No. The folks I was talking to were like, I really want it cheaper. I'm like, I don't think you're going to get it cheaper. You're going to get it more expensive, because they're always going to be investing in the next thing, and they're wanting to better themselves, and they got to pay for it.
I will follow on with I was going to say, I'm probably going to say what Trent's going to say. I will follow on with that fact is those of us who have been doing prefab offsite construction for a long time have internally proven that it's not necessarily cheaper, but what it is faster. You will meet your schedule better
and less risk.
Let me
help you. The word they're looking for is
predictability. There you go.
Predictability.
So it's
what owners want is they want you to say, we will open the doors on X date, and you can predict that will happen and it will work. And that's predictability.
Jeff is famous for it all the time. He's saying, like, what do your customers value?
Yeah.
Is it a cheaper price, or is it getting 3 months? They're building 3 months faster.
To me, that was weird. And maybe this, Sarah, would be a cool question for you, because that was an eye opener for me, getting involved with owners and assuming I knew what was up, and then getting just trashed on that. Around, like, because Travis said it, and this is where the whole value thing came. I was at a Kurt event and I was talking, and I don't know if it was Duke Energy or Pfizer or who was raise your hand and wait, whoa. I don't care about any of that. Like, you're telling me 5% more cost. I don't care. Because if my doors aren't open for the 3 months they're not open, you cost me way more than that. So don't care. My care is schedule and predictability, because my 5-year clock on my drug from the FDA approval before somebody else can make a generic, that's it. And I can't get that time back. It's not like the FDA is like, oh, well, your facility wasn't open, we'll just push that back a few months. No. So measuring what they value is, to me, extraordinarily interesting, because it can drive what you select as a GC to do and how you do it. Right. I mean, Trent, you're the one who said this. You'll pay 10% sometimes more for material if it can be guaranteed 100%. Well, 100% of the materials will be delivered.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because all of my risk is in the labor and the time. Yeah.
Right.
It's an interesting one to see, you know, how you all are going to shift to manage that. But then I think you have to, and this has been a big problem. And Sarah, maybe you can think through this one, but we have called it the single innovation curve in construction over and over. I think this is a unique problem that GCs and trades have. Is exactly what you said is I come up with a new way to do something on a project. And so I save 3 weeks off the schedule, or I save $3 million.
Mm-hmm.
I'm now expected the next time I come to the table to bid it for that $3 million less.
Yep.
That doesn't that does the inverse on innovation to us as an industry.
Yep. Well, and it's not achievable in this day and age with prices going up the way that they are. Like, you'll be lucky to get it for the same price. Like, if not 20 times more, like it's insane. But I think to the point, like y'all are saying about the predictability, the not saying it's a savings, like that is one thing I am trying to change the verbiage of the folks that are talking about prefab in our organization. Do not ever say it's a savings. It is not a savings. It sometimes is more. It's a certainty. It's a schedule certainty, predictability. Let's use the right verbiage. But like, I know to talk about like an owner's perspective, this was the conversation I was going to have today, was that we presented bathroom pods to an owner, and all that we did was put the price up there. And I'm like, oh man, that's not what we should have done. So I was trying to think of another way to angle this to make it about her, because all that she wanted to see was the dollars. And it was like, okay, let's spin this a different way. If you are looking at this from a dollars perspective, let's not look at the cost per pod. Let's look at our schedule right now has us doing pods. If we didn't do pods, we would probably gain 2 months on our schedule easily from a conventionally built bathroom pod on 70 pods. Okay, so that's 2 additional months. What's your revenue that you would lose in those 2 months if we went back to conventionally built? That's a totally different way to angle it. And she's like, crap, I'm losing millions of dollars. Do pods. Let's do it.
Yeah.
You're answering questions before I even asked them, because I was like, what are you doing to instruct your owners about that? And that's exactly what we need to do.
Yeah. Like, angle it a different way, because we can't play we can't play what's important to us, because it's not the same as the person who's paying the bill.
All right, Nathan, you get the money.
Yeah.
With them.
With them.
What's in it for me, baby? What's in it for me? That's, I mean, and it really is. It's about, I love that, because you're doing a mix of a couple of different things. So one of them's the Adam Grant think again. It's like, it can't be when you go to try and change somebody's mind, preaching at them. It has to be like, hey, let me open you up to this little world where you can rethink, oh, my business loses money, or, you know, I can't provide services to the city if it's a, you know, municipal, or I can't provide healthcare, et cetera. So,
well, it's up. I do from a technology standpoint that has taken me a while to get there, but it is still hard for people to understand. Is like, I'm trying to prove value on things that didn't happen.
Right.
And how do I have that conversation?
Yeah. Sarah, what were you going to say there?
No, I was going to say that's a hard thing to do. Like, I remember when we were trying to adopt BDC on our projects, and people were like, well, tell me the value. Tell me why. Like, why should I do this? Right. And I'm like, because I think you should. I mean, but I don't give
me 5 years, maybe.
I don't really have a parallel project that, you know, I can run side by side and show you, oh, this was with them and this wasn't. Like, I don't have that luxury. I just need you to trust me. And that's a hard thing for people to do. Especially when you don't have the data to back it up.
Yeah, I had the same conversation with another GC partner today. It was like, What's the BIM coordination process give me? I don't know, less change orders, but I can't run two simultaneous projects that are exactly the same to prove that out to you. So
Yeah.
you just have to say, you have to trust me.
Yeah. Less rework in the field. I mean, you're not going to have to rip stuff out and have to rebuild it. I mean, it's so hard.
I think it's, I've used before, it's the possibility of identifying a catastrophic event earlier in the time. Like, I mean, every project has that possibility of an event that is catastrophic to the project's timeline. And I think it gives you the ability to uncover that potential problem much earlier.
And I'll throw it back on myself as a technologist. We need to own that, because when those things, in not just me as a technologist, but a VDC person, anything like that, we don't take the time when we identify those situations to stop and say, what would this have cost? We fix the problem, we move on. And that makes it really hard to quantify that for the next project.
I think we as an industry do a bad job of just lessons learned in general, like capturing the stories.
Right.
The stories are what sell it for the next job.
Yep.
Like, hey, we like that electrical underground I was talking about earlier. Like, I sat out there with my phone and time stamped how long it took to go in. We wrote a story about it. We wrote an article about it. Like, hey, it took 2 hours to install an underground electrical underneath a CEP. That would have taken probably 2 to 3 months if we would have conventionally built it.
Yeah. I would qualify that, though. We do a great job of lessons learned when things go bad.
Right.
Yeah, but not when things go right.
Right.
Exactly. It's
Which
expected.
means the things that go right are far less likely to be replicated, and actually the things that went wrong are far more likely to continue to happen. We don't do a really good job of learning back. We look back at what we did and we try to incrementally do it better. Whereas what you're talking about doing, you can't incrementally necessarily improve on that underground electrical like that. You're doing a completely opposite move there. It's completely a different way to do it. And I think that's, to me, one of the problems with looking back only at problems and not looking back at that. And you're absolutely right, Sarah. We don't do a good job of advocating and telling those stories at all in the industry. In fact, I know there's a number of folks out there who still think they can do that themselves and take more and more market share without telling anybody. They're out there doing some of these unique things and they're not talking about it. I know you're out there talking about it, and I know, we got Travis and Trent here and others who do, but man, it'd be really nice if we all kind of drank that same Kool-Aid and that same way.
I was just going to applaud you, Sarah, for making an article, making a point to get it out there that you did this and you had the time studies and everything else to back it up. Because I'll throw it on my own shoulders. Like, I don't necessarily always do that. Like, we throw on the HoloLens, we find a mistake in a industrial plant that could have cost us 60 grand, which pays for 10 HoloLenses or whatever. We don't really share that not even beyond the project team it's on.
But I think it's good for people to be aware, because you don't know what you don't know. And if people don't know those facts, then they don't know that the benefit and the value that it brings to the table. And then also, if you're talking to like executives and people up in companies that control the money, if they know that value and how big of a deal it is, they're going to end up throwing some more money at it if they know that it's better for their business model, especially if their name's on the door. So, I mean, if I were an owner of a business, that's what I would do. But I'm not, so it is what it is.
If only.
Well, I am partly. I'm an employee owner, but that's
that
very
counts.
There you go.
Small. So,
it's not nothing.
No, it's not nothing.
No, and it's funny too, because a lot of us in the software side of things, we're always trying to write those case studies, and it's always seen as self-serving. But it is really like, hey, we need y'all to tell your stories, tout it, get up there, talk about it. We want everybody else to learn from you sometimes, to learn how to do it. Because I mean, it's the only way we're gonna grow this thing is for them to see the wins, and that's why it's great to have those groups like ENR and others out there covering what you guys are doing, and you know, and embracing it. Well, I hate to be the one that gets to do this, but I always get to do this. We have to start wrapping it up. Yeah, I know it's been really fun, Sarah. I'm really
Dude,
excited.
I like
It's been a
this.
blast.
Yeah,
I want to do this again. Can I come back?
You're the new host.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, you have a new podcast. Travis is your producer. He's awful. Be careful.
I'm the worst.
Trent, I don't know. We don't know how we got him. He just shows up here. I'll just take a break. I'm done.
It's kind of like, just the guy that showed up one day.
We're going to fix that glitch. Don't worry.
Download the app and he just keeps showing up. We don't
No,
know.
I would say if Nathan Wood listens to this, and I'm sure he will, reach out to Sarah. I think everything you've talked about would make you a phenomenal member of what Nathan's doing with the CPC.
I completely agree. And then Jeff and I were chatting a little bit, like if we could pair you again when we come back with an owner's rep, it would be really, really interested to kind of, because you kind of have, not that I want to put, pat the MEP trades on the back, but between the four of us, if we had an owner's rep, that would be a big slice of the pie to kind of attacking this conversation.
Yeah. I think an owner's perspective would definitely add to it. I think, and there's a lot out there that are advocates of this. So, we can find one. That's easy.
I think we should make it happen.
Yeah.
Any final words for everybody listening in? Especially, I always think about people. I don't know how many people have your title, but anybody who's kind of associated with what you do or is thinking about doing what you're doing, what's some advice you can give them?
So I would be open to new ways of doing things, and then also be open-minded as far as positions, because this position that I'm in didn't exist a year ago in JE Dunn. And that's how my whole career has been. I have been basically taking risks and going on new positions within organizations or newer positions. So I would encourage people to just keep your eyes open, because new positions are appearing daily in organizations. And if you're not happy doing what you're doing, keep your eyes out, because there's probably something that will appear. Or if you have an idea, pitch it. They may take it and make a position that you want.
Awesome. That's great advice. Gentlemen, anything final words to say? Any final questions before we roll on?
I would just say that, and it's going to be a statement and a question. First, the statement is, I really would hope that companies like JE Dunn look to their peers and are willing to share information. And then the self-serving question is, I may have a couple of people in companies that maybe aren't your size, but are with that mid-level GCCM. Like, are you okay with connections from them? And I understand that you may compete in some markets, but I think that you are on that whole rising tide. Damn it, Nathan. The whole rising tide mindset, if they reached out to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it's all about who you know these days, and it's all about sharing ideas. And we talked about that earlier, and I'm like game for it. Feel free to share.
Great.
Awesome. Trent, anything?
I don't. I just want to thank you. I know we've been in touch several times over the past couple of years. I've sat in job interviews where you've got to ask me really tough questions, and we've got to hang out at conferences.
You didn't get a single one of those jobs, did you, Trent?
Not a single one.
He didn't. Sorry. I had his back. I was vouching for him, but it just didn't work out.
I don't want to work with Trent. So,
but no, I'm you were somebody that I targeted to be a part of this, and I'm glad that we were able to do this. And I think it's been one of our better ones we've done in a while. It's been a lot of fun. And I thank you.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you guys for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Well, thank you, Sarah, for coming on. This has been episode 50. Foresight leads to more sites. That's right. Episode 50. 50.
That was 47.
Right. That was 45. Or I don't know what that was. I don't know. That was my own version of 50. I'm screwing it up. That's okay. We're out. Thank you for joining us today. This is the Doorcast signing out.
Thank you.